important to look up what some of the advocacy nonprofits are in around the state. NARAL is definitely one of them, and I'm hoping to get more of a group started here on campus so that folks have a bit more of an avenue to take for that. But we have a lot of clinics in the state that are what we call crisis pregnancy centers, where they actually lie to women and they say to them, and they disguise themselves as abortion clinics, and they don't actually do that. And so doing some research and exposing crisis pregnancy centers is definitely something that you can do immediately. And also just staying informed and educating yourself about what's happening in legislation in North Carolina. And we're a really great resource for that. We constantly are updating Facebook and Twitter, letting you guys know about articles and things like that. So I think just staying informed and having really important conversations with your family and friends is a big thing.
I'd also suggest two other things. One, we have the NARAL student group here on campus. There's a sign-up sheet outside, so if you'd like to participate in that. And we try to do stuff like this, to have these kinds of discussions, bring speakers on campus, host voter registration drives, those types of things. There's also an organization in Wilmington called Friends of Planned Parenthood, which is a group that runs kind of the gamut of people who do have a lot of money and people who don't have a lot of money. I fall into the latter category. And a lot of what we do, again, is some of the same things, the voter registration drives and those kinds of things. You can also get involved at the Planned Parenthood clinic here. They use volunteers for different things. Fortunately, we don't need clinic escorts. It's on a private property, so protesters kind of can't get the close access to it, but there's other tasks that need to be done. They help organize fundraising events so that if you don't have money, you can help with manning tables, with registration, with sending out emails, and certainly right around the corner is 2014, so certainly depending on your political beliefs, anybody else's, there'll be lots of people coming to you asking you to participate in a lot of different ways. So I think those are some ways too that you can get your hands dirty, which is kind of fun too, no matter what side you're on.
Amy, do you want to say something about her real quick? I'm jumping in. I didn't hear the question. I'm just assuming what it was based on the answer. And Amy doesn't have this information, so I'm just jumping in on the end of that. Actually, next week, we're going to start putting together a Planned Parenthood advocacy group here in Wilmington. I don't have a location yet for the meeting place, but I'll give it to Amy, so if anybody is interested in getting involved with that. The Friends of Planned Parenthood group will be involved in that, but it's a slightly different group because it's more in the fundraising side, and we'll be doing more advocacy work. So Amy will get some of that information, so if you are interested in that, you can get it from her. I don't have a location yet, but it will be Thursday of next week that we will have our first meeting. There may only be a few people there since it will be the first time, but that's coming up here in Wilmington.
Tomorrow night, if you are of drinking age, you can imbibe, but if not, you can go and not drink. So you can get it. Satellite is hosting an event, Cheers for Choice. Tomorrow is the 41st anniversary of Roe v. Wade. So the Planned Parenthood group that I spoke to you about, Friends of Planned Parenthood, is hosting an event there with information on how you can get involved in some of their activities. So I believe that starts at 6:30 tomorrow night, so you can also go there. And if you're 21, you can come in and have a soda. And that'll be fun also. Yes?
I was a little confused by Susan's story. Why did she deny the woman from France, but accept the woman, the child that was 16 years old? And she said, well, they have to come in with a better story than that, better story. So it was like, well, first she was like, she didn't like the story of the woman from France, but then she had this conversation about how, women shouldn't even have to have a story, I was a little confused about that.
Yeah, and I totally hear that too. And I think what's interesting that she had said before was, gosh, this doesn't really seem fair to me that I don't know what it is that makes me be able basically to play God. And so it's definitely something that she struggles with too on the daily. It's a really, really hard decision to figure out well, who is it?
And I think unless I'm wrong, one of the ways she was approaching it is that the laws in Albuquerque and New Mexico allow for abortions up to 28 weeks. Then after it, the doctors have to get more. Then the doctors can decide on a case-by-case basis. So where that compelling story becomes tantamount to making the decision. Before 28 weeks, that need for a compelling story is not present. So I think what she was saying there is before 28 weeks, if a person comes in and is committed to those three principles that she said about making a decision, then she's going to carry through for that decision on them. After 28 weeks, the state laws are a little bit different, and so then she has to be involved in the compelling story portion of it. And I believe the 16-year-old was right under the 28 weeks, and so that's why she didn't need that story, just because of the legislation in the state. Yes, sir. Oh, man, I'm sorry. It's not you, it's the lady. Sorry.
I guess I had a preconceived notion that a clinic that does late-term procedures would be like a profit-driven abortion mill, where the doctors are in and out of the room and very little time spent with the patients. And I was impressed with how caring, concerned, and compassionate all of the medical staff were, especially the wonderful bedside manner of the doctor. And I was wondering if that was really representative of how it is, or was that for the movie, you know, because they were on camera?
I mean, I feel like they did a really great job of kind of depicting people's lives as they were naturally. Like, to me, none of that looked staged. I mean, I bought it, right? Like,
It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I would say that I don't, what I would consider to be honor, knowing those four doctors, I don't know them personally. So the veracity of the representation, it's hard. My imagination is that to have stayed in it with the opposition that they consistently are receiving, and the way that it's working, it's not a hugely profit-driven business. It's so restricted. It's so few people who are eligible for it, that there's something that's calling them to that work other than profit. For other doctors that perform abortions, I would imagine the experience is as wide as it is with any other doctor. So I'm sure that you've had experiences with, I hope, good doctors, but wonderful bedside manner. You're like, I always want to come back to him or her. And you've had other ones where you're like, I would never want to see that person again in my life. And so I would imagine that with abortion providers, there would be a wide range. But like you, that was one of the things that I really appreciated about the film. And also watching them tease through the implications of their decision and try to think about, why should I say yes? Why shouldn't I say no? What does it mean to be a part of this? Where can I draw the line? What seems right to me? What seems wrong to me? The doctor who is conceiving of it as a baby. And what does that mean for her ability to make that decision? I think that's one of the things, is that I think for all four of the doctors, it's not, for the most part, cut and dry. You know, they too have to kind of deal a lot with the decision that they're making.
Thank you. One more thing, you know, as heartbreaking as it was, listening to the patient's stories, you have to wonder about, what about the women who don't even have enough resources to get into the doctor's office? You know, what about the ones that can't afford the trip out of state, or the procedure when they get there, or the hotel room to stay in overnight, or gas money? You know, what are their stories?
And certainly with just every day, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester abortion, that's a decision that all women have to face. 87% of the counties in the United States have no access to abortion providers. So for people in North Carolina, you're making decisions about where to go. Our local clinic here in Wilmington sees people from different places in South Carolina who have to, it's difficult for them to get here. Most insurances won't cover it, as you've seen legislation. In North Carolina, kind of across the board, also wants to make it where the insurance that I have and I pay for, and it's my insurance, I'm not allowed to elect for abortion coverage to be a part of what I want. They even want to make it to where your private insurance won't allow that. So that's certainly something that I think all women, and it certainly is an issue that will impact a large class of people in the United States.
A minute ago, you brought up the morality that you were dealing with, is it right, because you're looking at it as a baby, and then you can't look at it like that because you are a doctor. So are you familiar, maybe you might know, what are the medical qualifications, since science is the go-to, you have to let it be founded in science, what are the medical requirements between 28 weeks and then the woman from France who was 35 weeks? What are the medical requirements and they wanted medical reasons.
I don't know that there are 100% medical reasons. So there's 9 states that allow for late-term abortions to be performed. So in 41 of the states, it's a moot point. And it's not a decision that a doctor can make. So in those states have differing levels of regulation, and those are going to go into, for most states, is there a fetal anomaly, or is the life of the mother at stake in the delivery of those babies? And most of the states, Maryland and New Mexico, differ a little bit on how they do it, and they leave it again in that murkiness of, if you've read any legal stuff, it's always murky and difficult to kind of tease out. Regulations put in place to kind of make it difficult, make it difficult for women to get abortion, and Planned Parenthood v. Casey puts in place these laws about what's a substantial obstacle to a woman getting abortion. You know, there's this language that makes it difficult. In most states, except for 2, it has to be life of the mother or fetal anomaly. Those are the only 2 decisions that would account for the ability to have a late-term abortion.
As a pre-med student, and going through like anatomy courses, I'm fairly familiar with like the development of the unborn. And I know that there is a major development change between 28 weeks and 36. With those differences, are those taken into account? Because I know that Phil brought up, you know, the possibility of pain that the unborn feels, and I know that at that stage, the cells in the nervous system is being developed. So what do the pro-choice have to say about that? How would they address it? Would they change if medicine proves that that actually is something that occurs? You know, as science is evolving, what would happen?
I am not positive. I don't know.
I mean, one, you would have to, and you know, since the Roe v.